I have clicked all the right buttons, so the lesson should be starting, hopefully. We'll start in about 43 seconds. Let me double check to make sure everything is working properly. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're ready to learn some English. This lesson today is about eating and drinking. You might get hungry while we're watching this lesson, but we'll start in about 20 seconds. Sounds like everything's working. So anyways, I hope you are alert, ready to learn. I hope you can stay focused during the lesson, and I hope you enjoy it. That's one of the more important things, I think. It's always good to enjoy the English lesson. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about eating and drinking. You are probably not surprised that I decided to do a lesson on eating and drinking after having celebrated the Christmas holidays here in Canada. Christmas and New Year's generally are a time where we eat a lot. And then also I thought it would be a good idea because I like to focus today on the verbs we use when talking about eating and drinking. I have done lessons in the past about eating and drinking. Excuse me. About eating and drinking, but this one will focus primarily on the verbs that we use. So welcome to this English lesson about eating and drinking. Hey, before we get started, hello to Paco-san, John Wedge, Juan, Abla, Clive, Barkash, Bridget, first name, last name, Wanda Prado, Freddie, Vitor, Lolly. Let me scroll back here. A lot of familiar names. We are once again doing this at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will be today and next week, Friday. And then I hope to move this lesson back an hour to 8:30. But for this week, we are here right now. Hopefully everyone noticed the time change. I flipped it around a little bit. We're going to talk about eating and drinking. Don't get too hungry during the lesson. And then just a few ground rules. Please use the link that Nightbot will put in the chat. I think Nightbot just put it there. I will pin that message. So if you have a question, please use that link to ask it. And if you have the desire to have fun English conversations in the chat, please do that. And if you are someone who would like a little bit more from Bob the Canadian, don't forget that there is a join button. If you want to join as a member, you can experience having your name in green during a live lesson and a little crown beside your name and a few other things. An extra lesson on Mondays, extra video on Wednesdays, and those sorts of goodies, fun things. But anyways, should we get started? A lot of people saying hi. Hello to Miguel, Mayar, Sybil, Gunison, Izaldin, Chico. Nice to see some familiar faces and probably some new faces in the chat. But hey, let's double check everything and then let's get this lesson started. Yes, let's do that. Here we go. To eat, to drink. Obviously, if I'm going to do a lesson on eating and drinking, I should talk about the basic verbs. Those are, of course, the two most common verbs that we use. It's enjoyable to eat yummy food. It's enjoyable to drink things that taste really good. Many people will eat 3 times a day, maybe 4 times a day. People will probably drink more often throughout the day. I drink water throughout the day. And that's really the only thing I drink, by the way. I drink water, sometimes tea, sometimes decaf coffee. If you want to talk about favorites, I like to eat pizza. I like to drink water. So your 2 basic verbs. Let's get into some other, maybe less common verbs for you, but definitely very common in the English language. To slurp. When you slurp, I'm going to slurp here. You can slurp from a cup. It's not the nicest sound. When you eat soup with a spoon, you can also slurp. It's the sound. It must be like the liquid and the air are mixing together. So you heard the little sound of to slurp. It's actually considered a little bit rude in my part of the world to slurp. Sometimes when people slurp their soup, someone might say, stop slurping. But I think in some parts of the world, it's normal. It's normal to slurp when you eat things like soup or drink your water or other drink. To sip. So you saw me just do that as well a little while ago. A sip is a tiny amount of a drink. So I needed a sip of water. It's a noun as well. So I decided to sip a little bit of water. So when you sip, it sometimes is something you do when the drink is hot. If you buy a hot cup of tea or a hot cup of coffee, sometimes you sip because you're not sure how hot it is. So you just take a little bit so that you don't burn your tongue. To gulp. So to gulp means I'm not going to show you a gulp, but a gulp would be like in one swallow, you drink a whole bunch. So let me see if I can do a gulp. So that was a pretty good gulp. So it's almost the opposite of a sip. Like a sip is a little bit and a gulp is a lot. You might gulp down water after you run. Maybe you exercise for a while. And when you're done, you're very, very thirsty. So you might gulp down some water. Take huge amounts and swallow it. To munch. This is something that we use this verb in a unique way because we might say, oh, I need to find something to munch on. I'm a little bit hungry. I need a snack. I need something to munch on. And so usually for me, it refers to something crunchy. You can see how crunch and munch rhyme, but it doesn't have to. You can find something to munch on. If you're watching a hockey game or a football game, you might get some chips. You might sit down because you want to munch on something. So again, usually used for snacks. I wouldn't use this to talk about a meal, but yeah, every once in a while you're a bit hungry and you need something to munch on. To chew. So the best picture I could find is chewing gum, but I will do the action. After you put food in your mouth, you need to chew the food. Before you swallow the food, before the food goes down into your stomach, you need to chew the food. And you need to chew it well. You shouldn't just chew twice and swallow. It's important for your digestion to chew the food properly. You can also chew gum. So you'll sometimes see people on the train or on the subway and they're chewing for a long time. They're probably chewing gum. So to chew means to use your teeth to break food up into smaller pieces before you swallow it. To gobble up. So you can gobble up or gobble down. It both works. It means to eat something really, really quickly. Teenagers will often gobble up all the food that you put out. If in my classroom, I brought snacks and put them on a table, when my students arrived, if I said, you can have as much as you want, they would just gobble up all the food. They would go to the table and they would just eat everything. So to gobble up, usually used to talk about people who eat a lot of food very quickly. And so I always think of teenagers. I think because I'm a high school teacher, I have a club at school where students can come after school. And sometimes we have food. And if we have food, they gobble up all the food. They eat it very quickly. To wolf down. Similar to gobble up, wolf down means to eat a lot of food. The best example I can think of this is when I was in university. In the summer, I had a part-time job building houses with my uncle. I worked in the construction industry, and that made me very, very hungry. At lunchtime, I would wolf down my food. When I got home from work, I would make supper and I would wolf down my supper. When you wolf down food, it means you eat it very, very quickly. You probably don't chew it properly. You probably put food in your mouth, chew it 3 times and swallow it. So you wolf down food when you are very, very hungry. You just eat very, very quickly. To guzzle. So to guzzle is similar to gulp. When you're done exercising, you will guzzle down a lot of water. During my lessons, I don't guzzle down the water. I sip. But if you saw someone drink an entire bottle in one go, if they open the lid and they were like just drinking away, you would say that they decided to guzzle down some water because they are very, very thirsty. Very common if you watch any kind of sports. You'll see the players go to the sideline and guzzle water or guzzle Gatorade because they are so thirsty. Hey, let's do some questions. I think it's a good time to do some questions. Let me see if there are some questions. I think there are. Here we go. Let me get the first question on the screen. Where are we here? So this is not on topic, but I'll answer it. How to speak fluently without any mistakes. So a little fix at the end there. You need to practice, but you can also, I just highly recommend you memorize some very common English sentences. If you were to sit down, you could probably write down 50 sentences that you should know. Like, hi, how are you? It's really hot today. What did you do on the weekend? Like, you could probably come up with some things they would help you in your conversation. That would be my recommendation. From Abla, if someone says that I have a sweet tooth, what is the meaning, please? A sweet tooth refers to a person who likes to eat things that are sweet. I have a sweet tooth. I like chocolate. I like candies. I like cookies. I like cake. I like all of the snacks that are made with lots of sugar, as opposed to salty snacks. So I don't really like pretzels or chips or what you might call crisps if you're in the UK. So if you have a sweet tooth, you like food that is sweet. From Mohammed, you're speaking very fast, so speak slowly. How to understand. So one of the things I suggest to people is to slow the video down. You can't necessarily do this with a live lesson. Actually, you might be able to do it with a live lesson. Let me check here. Playback speed. Oh, you can do it with a live lesson. Yes. So I would recommend that you slow down the speed of the video you are watching. Sorry, I just want to verify that for a sec. I mean, of course, you will get behind. It won't if you slow it down. Cool. You can slow down a live lesson. Again, the lesson won't be live. It won't exactly be live if you slow it down. But yeah, I don't want to slow down how fast I speak because you can use the technology to do that. From Garima, hi Bob, how to strengthen my English vocabulary. A little fix there. I used to make notes of new words and try to learn them, but it didn't work. You need to strategically learn words that you're going to use at least 5 to 7 times the week that you learn it. So if you learn the word kangaroo, which is a giant animal from Australia, you need to use the word kangaroo as many times as you can that week in writing in a conversation. It's also a good idea if you can, with a new word, if you can draw a picture of it. That doesn't work for every word, but if you can draw a picture, that will help you remember it as well. Simply writing a word in a journal in English and then in your own language it's a good start, but you need to do a lot more than that. So from Fritz, hi Bob, I hope all things go well. What do the Canadians prefer, coffee or tea? We are a funny country because our history is closely associated with Britain. There are a lot of people that drink tea in Canada. But because we live close to the United States, there's also a lot of people that enjoy coffee. So I would say we're kind of a mix. Like we have a kettle in our kitchen to make tea. We enjoy drinking tea, but I also enjoy going to Tim Hortons and getting a decaf coffee every once in a while. So I wonder what the actual stats are, Fritz. I don't actually know. From Sofian. Hello, Bob. Happy New Year again. Thank you. Is it okay to say, let's do lunch for inviting someone to eat? Yes, very common at work, or very common, as you go through your day. I think I would most likely hear this at work. Like, hey, what are you doing next Monday at lunchtime? Oh, nothing. Well, let's do lunch. It means let's go to a restaurant and eat together. Or you might even just sit and eat in the lunchroom. Maybe you brought your own lunch and you just want to have lunch together. From Moomin Mirza, I'm going to start to skip the questions that aren't on topic. So try to keep the questions on the topic of food. But what is the difference between named and called? That's a tricky one. Like, this is called. I think when it's an object, I use called. Like this is called a bench, and this is called a pair of reading glasses. And named is more like, this dog is named Charlie, I think. From Daniel, back on topic. Here we go. Hi, Bob. I hope you are doing well, and thank you for this lesson. What's the difference between gobble up and wolf down? Very similar, although I think I would use gobble up more to talk about a group of people. Like, they gobbled up all the food. You could say they wolfed down all the food, but usually I would say, like, he was so hungry, he wolfed down a whole pizza. So this is not a perfect answer, but I would use gobble up more for a group and wolf down more for an individual. You can flip them, but okay, I'm gonna here we go. Hi, Mr. Bob. Could you try to speak with your natural speed just for testing? Now it sounds a bit slowish. Thank you and have a nice day. So this is fairly close to my teaching speed. Let me switch gears for you. If I was talking to a friend, I would probably talk a little more like this. If I was to read your question at full speed, I would probably say, hi, Mr. Bob, could you try to speak with your natural speed just for testing? Now it sounds a bit slowish. Thank you and have a nice day. So my full speed English isn't that much faster than how I teach. Let's see here. Hi, my best teacher, Bob. Give me some tips in self-study. So there's two things I often recommend for people who are studying by themselves. Number one, make a plan and stick to the plan. The reason I say that is because you need to have time to study and you need to be motivated to study. For me, if I schedule that I'm going to study half an hour a day for the week, my personality is such that I will stick to that plan. So, you need to stay motivated and you need to make sure you have time to do the studying. So hopefully you can do that. Okay, let me have a sip of water and then we will get back to the lesson. I'm drinking my water a little quickly today, maybe because I took that gulp earlier. That probably had something to do with it, but I can always run and get some more water in a little bit. Let me see from the chat. Lolly's talking to Bridget. I don't really eat lollies. I prefer chips. So Lolly's name actually is short form for lollipop, or I don't know if her name is, but that word is. So I think Bridget was asking her about that. Zinab says, hello, I'm Zinab from Egypt. I follow you all the time and my current level is B2. That's awesome. I am still a student of 15 and I have an English exam tomorrow. Love English very much and I love your course. Well, I hope you do really, really well tomorrow, Zinab. I hope it goes well, the English exam. Very cool. And then Hugh says, hello, Bob. What time do you usually wake up? I usually get up around 6:37, but over Christmas break, I was sleeping in quite a bit. Carlos says, hi, Bob. Do Canadians speak slang in daily conversations? We do a little bit, yes. Although the older you get, the less slang you use. To force down. So this is an interesting verb because to force down food means to eat food when you don't want to eat food. The best example would be if you're sick and then when you start to get better, like let's say you're sick and it's stomach flu, like maybe you have a stomach ache or you're throwing up, something is not right. At some point you need to start eating again, but you might not want to. So you might have to force down some food. I was sick 2 weeks ago, and then the next day I thought I should have some toast. So I was able to force down a piece of toast. So it means to eat when you don't feel like eating, okay? And sometimes you have to. People who have surgery in the hospital, a day or two after surgery, they might need to force down some food. They don't want to eat. They don't feel like eating. They're not hungry, but it's important to eat. So they might force down some food in order to get better. To nibble, this was the best picture I could find for this. Mice sometimes nibble on cheese. I was actually going to say nibble is like the eating equivalent of to sip. So when you sip, you have a little bit of your drink. When you nibble, you have a tiny bit of what you are eating. So sometimes people will nibble at some of their food. Instead of taking a big bite with a fork, they might just take a little tiny piece of the food. They will nibble at the food. So to nibble means to take a small bite. To binge. So to binge means to eat a lot of food in one sitting. Okay. It means to eat more than you need to eat. We also use this verb to talk about watching a TV show one episode after another. If you sit down and watch 5 episodes of a single TV show, we say you are binge watching. When we use the verb to talk about eating, we use it to mean eating more than you need to eat. So the best example for this would be if, let's say you didn't eat for 2 days, you decided you were going to fast. When you fast, it means you're not eating. At the end, you might have 3 eggs and 4 pieces of toast, and you might binge on food. You might eat more food than you normally would in one sitting. To dig in. So this is a verb we use to talk about when you start eating. In fact, we sometimes say this for fun at the beginning of a meal. You might say, okay, the food's already dig in. You could say, what time is supper? Oh, we're going to dig in around 5. But usually you hear this as a humorous way to start a meal. Someone might say, okay, let's sit down at the table. Everyone sits down, and then someone, maybe the person who prepared the food, might say, okay, dig in, enjoy the salad or whatever it is you are eating. But to dig in means to start eating. To devour. So I think you might be familiar with this verb. To devour means to eat a lot of food very quickly. It's like to wolf down. Like you can wolf down a pizza. You can devour a pizza. Again, I usually use this verb to talk about teenagers. Have you ever noticed that teenagers can eat a lot of food? If I brought 4 pizzas to my classroom, the students would devour them. It kind of makes them sound like animals, right? Like a lion will devour its prey, or I think that's a good example. And so when you use the verb to devour, it means basically it's like you're so hungry you don't think about eating. You just eat very quickly until the food is gone. To devour. To snack on. Sometimes it's nice to have some food to snack on. We add the word on because it means, like, trying to think, like, if I go to a party and I see this, I might say, oh, it's nice that there's some things to snack on. You can also say snacks, like there's some snacks to snack on. But if you have a party and there's nothing to eat, people might be disappointed and say, well, there's nothing to snack on. I'm very hungry and there's nothing to snack on. So again, this does not refer to a meal. Like you wouldn't use this verb to talk about breakfast, lunch, or dinner or supper. You would use it to talk about this kind of food, like chips and nuts and little crackers and cookies. And I think that looks like cereal in the bottom bowl. But these people, wherever this picture is from, have decided that people might like to have something to snack on. So they have put out some snacks. To take a bite. So this is interesting because you can bite your food, but we don't often say that. We usually say take a bite. So let's say you have a sandwich. You could say he is going to bite the sandwich and then chew on it. But it sounds kind of weird. We usually say he's going to take a bite and then chew on it. When we offer food to people, we sometimes say, here, take a bite, see if you like it. So when you take a bite, it means you basically put the food in your mouth, close your mouth, and take the food away. She is just about to take a bite of this piece of, it looks like bread with jam on it. She's going to take a bite. I'm sure it will taste really, really yummy. When you're eating food with someone, they might say, is it good? And you might say, I haven't even taken a bite yet. Like, I don't know. I haven't even taken a bite. So when you take a bite, it means you bite the food and you start to eat it, to take a bite. To swallow. So I mentioned this one earlier. When you put food or water in your mouth, at a certain point, you need to swallow. When you swallow, the food or drink goes from your mouth down to your stomach. Okay. Sometimes people have trouble swallowing. That's not a fun experience. Maybe you have a sore throat. So you talk like this because you have a sore throat. Maybe you're sick and have a cold. And you would say, oh, I'm having trouble swallowing. It's a very common side effect or symptom of having a sore throat. You are unable to swallow because your throat is sore. But usually you take a bite, then you chew the food, and then you swallow it. So to use 3 of the verbs we just learned, if I had a banana, I would take a bite of the banana. I would chew the banana, and then I would swallow the banana. To pick at. So this is, again, kind of the opposite of to wolf down or to gobble up. When you pick at your food, maybe someone gives you some food and you don't really like it, so you kind of pick at it. If someone gave me a bowl with chocolate chips and different nuts in it, I might pick at it because I don't like nuts that much. So I might eat some of the chocolate chips, and I might eat some of the nuts I don't like. But I'm not like putting handfuls of food in my mouth. To pick at definitely gives the impression that you don't totally like the food you're eating and you're just kind of doing what she's doing. She has a tray of food and it looks like she's going to pick at the food. She's going to eat the one thing and maybe some of the other things she's not going to eat. Maybe she just doesn't like them. We also use the verb to demolish. This is similar to wolf down or to gobble up or to devour. It's kind of like a cool way of saying that you ate all the food. Like, we got 3 large pizzas and we demolished them. That's the past tense. Or if I said, if my son had some friends over and I brought home pizza for them, they would demolish the pizzas. So again, demolish actually means to destroy something. You can use that verb as well, by the way. But when you demolish something, it means you eat all of it very, very quickly. These guys look like they are hungry. They're going to demolish that pizza and then it will be all gone. Hey, let's do some questions. Let's do members only chat. It's a couple minutes early, but we're running on time today. Let me get members only chat turned on. By the way, if you are a member, you can ask questions directly in the chat right now. And if you're wondering what membership is, so 2 things. 1, don't leave. I will finish the lesson in about 10 minutes. Number 2, if you are interested in becoming a member, you get a lesson on Mondays, kind of a series of ideas of things you can do throughout the week to practice your English. You get an extra video on Wednesdays called Wednesdays with Bob. You get your name in green during live lessons and a little crown by your name, and you get to participate in members only chat. So If those things seem interesting to you, click the join button below and you will get some more information. Let me just check a couple things here. Okay, good. I think everything is good to go. From the chat, John Wedge says, don't forget to give a thumbs up, folks. Yes, if you don't mind giving a thumbs up. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe wherever that red button is. 310 viewers. I feel like there is an appetite for learning English in the world right now because my live stream viewership has gone up a little bit recently. Excuse me. Okay, from the chat. Excuse me again. John Wedge says, don't forget to give a thumbs up. Vitor says, if you have bite-sized food, would you typically be nibbling on it or eating it? You would probably be eating it. Nibbling kind of implies the food is bigger and you're taking tiny bites of it. Like if you had a chocolate bar and you were taking tiny bites at the end, you would say you're nibbling on the chocolate bar. So if you had bite-sized food, you would probably be taking a handful, if that's okay in your culture, a handful and then eating it, or a bowl of it and eating it. Lolly Lolly says devour equals dévorer in French. Oh, very cool. Very neat. Andres says languages are quite interesting. We have identical verbs like to devour, to demolish in Hungarian when you are talking about eating. Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's definitely like you could say, oh, I'm going to destroy this pizza. I'm going to demolish this pizza. I'm going to devour this pizza. All of those would be common. Destroy would be a little more like teenagers might say that. Oh, he destroyed that pizza. Freddie Wolf says, Bob, in order to ask for eating just a little thing, could I say, let's grab a bite? Merci d'avance. Yes, in fact, you can use grab a bite to talk about a small amount of food or a large amount of food. It simply means you want to eat with that person. So, or not necessarily. Okay, here's two examples. I could say to someone at work, hey, if you're not busy at lunch, you want to go grab a bite? It's the same as saying, do you want to go grab lunch or do you want to do lunch? It all means the same thing. And I can also say to someone, hey, I'll meet you in an hour. I just need to grab a bite. So it simply means to eat. It doesn't matter the size. It can be large or small. Great question, Freddie. Very, very, very cool. Vitor says, thanks, Bob. No problem. John Wedge says, in Portuguese, devour equals devorar. I think I said that right. Hopefully I said that right. Devorar. Hey, let me get another question up on the screen. I'm going to focus on... Denny says, hello, Bob. I don't know about you, but I usually clean my plate up and sip and savor my drinks. Yes, I'm someone who I generally eat everything that's on my plate. I don't like to waste food. Although my doctor said, when I was younger, my doctor said, don't finish your kids' food. Like when my kids were really, really little, we didn't force them to eat all their food. I would sometimes finish their food for them. My doctor said that makes your stomach larger. It makes you a little bit overweight if you do that. Let's see here. Freddie Wolf says, Bob, how's it going? What do you call the fact? Obviously, Freddie watched my video from this week. What do you call the fact is chewing a meal with an open mouth? That's quite impolite, isn't it? Yes. Merci beaucoup. By the way, even though I'm starving, I wouldn't wolf down my meal. Oh yeah, Freddie's name got to be in the lesson today. Yes, I'm not sure what it's like in your part of the world. Where I live, chewing food with your mouth open is considered rude. So John Wedge says, yes, Bob, you pronounce it correctly. Cool. I did my best. From Sophia. Hello, Bob. I'm going to cook a soup with vegetables and fish